Thank you very much. Welcome, refugees. I have some roots in South Africa. My parents met there, were married there. My brother was born there. My half-sister born there. I've spent some time in South Africa, though not lately. And in thinking about what I wanted to talk about with you today, I view South Africa as the scene of an ongoing crime, the murder. The potential murder of a people. Now, how do you kill a people? Well, first, you must kill the idea of a people. And what is the idea of the whites in South Africa? Western civilization, individualism, free markets, private property, the rule of law, and a commitment to the egalitarian treatment of all individuals by the state. These are Western ideals, European ideals. They come from a long tradition of philosophy and political science and theory. The history of Africa as a whole, prior to whites coming, was the history of tribalism, of superstition, of collectivism, and of an enforced socialism. The original idea of most of the indigenous tribes of Africa is collectivism. The saying, it's a Bantu saying, I am who I am because we are who we are. The collective, the group, comes first. The individual is a mere imperfect shadow cast by the perfect statue of the group. And this is why it is so hard for many people in Africa to let go of tribalism, to let go of a collective identity. So the question is, we have a potential crime, the murder of a people. The question is, what is the motive? Why attack? For the past about 250 years, there have been two systems of thought and social organization at war with each other. Individualism, collectivism. Private property, communal property. Tribalism, and individuation. The collectivists look at the success of individualism, of the free market, of private property, and they hate it. They hate it with a passion that we can scarcely imagine. Because as individualists, as free marketers, I assume, we're on the side that empiricism and facts have proven correct. So they hate the individualism, they hate the free market, and they wish to destroy it. Now, how do you destroy the free market? It's kind of tough to do because the free market is continually spitting out all these great things to seduce the people. All these great things produced by the free market, it's kind of tough to miss. I'm not just talking like the cool things, you know, like our cell phones and our videos, but you know, sanitation, penicillin, antibiotics, modern healthcare, like all of these great things fundamentally coming out of the free market. So they hate the free market, and how did they destroy it? They go to people who aren't succeeding in the free market, and what do they say? Oh, look at all those rich people. Look at all those rich people. Do you know why they're rich? Because they stole from you. You had all of this wealth, and they came along and they scooped it up. And they stole everything, and that's why they're rich, and that's why you're poor. And I will lead you in the fight to get it back. And like Iago whispering into the ear of Othello, they keep whispering and whispering and snarling and whispering, and these people are terrible, and they're rich because you're poor, and they killed and raped and murdered, and they just keep festering these wounds. It's not true. That's important. It's not true. There was not a great wealth in Africa before the Europeans came. Sorry, there just wasn't. Wasn't much written language, if any. Wasn't a two-story building. Wasn't a wheel. We brought the wheel. But if they can get people to believe that it is not individualism that produces wealth, it is not the free market that produces wealth, but it is only theft and predation and plunder and murder and rape and destruction that produces wealth. Well, of course, they have to skate over a lot of third world history where there was, in fact, a lot of rape and plunder and murder and enslavement, not a lot of wealth. The free market allows for the generation of wealth because the most able individuals end up with the most resources. The best farmer ends up with the most land. The person best able to create wealth ends up with the most wealth. The person who's best able to make a productive factory ends up with the most factories. It's magic. And it's the only way that wealth can be generated on a sustainable basis. It is not plunder, it is creation. Wealth is not stolen, it is created. If I write a beautiful song, I have not stolen it from people who can't write music. So you must murder the idea of individualism, you must murder the idea of the free market, of private property, of rule of law, and you must say that all privilege results not from philosophical concepts that accord with reality, results not from the attempt to enact justice in a very wild continent, but it arises from plunder and race. Because, of course, there are lots of rich blacks in South Africa who seem to be getting paid quite a lot from their government salary, end up with a lot of resources. Isn't that the kind of political plunder that they're actually complaining about, not the creation of the free market? It took, if you look at sort of the white race, about 50,000 years old, really it's only been 250 years that we finally got a hold of individualism, private property, free markets, human rights. That is 0.5% of our entire history. And I remember in the 90s, when the end of apartheid was being discussed, having the most ferocious arguments with all the brain-dead, blind-eyed leftists on the planet, saying, it's too soon, it can't work yet. I wish it could, but it can't. It was too soon. It was too soon. You can take the cast off when the bone has healed if you don't. If you take it too soon, it's rebroken and it's worse. 0.5% of our entire history as a race has finally been a fairly full and flowering manifestation of individualism, private property, and free markets, rule of law. And these things, though we have tried as a culture to transfer these gifts to the world, we have tried and tried and tried, and it doesn't work the way we want it to. Nobody is stopping any other culture. We didn't patent these ideas. We didn't say, well, you know, we're going to have to sue you if you try and have a free market. We didn't patent these ideas. They are available to everyone. The translations are available to everyone. There is no culture in the world that would be denied a free market, individualism, property rights, and the rule of law. And we have strode confidently around the world saying, we have these wonderful gifts, we will give them to you, we will sacrifice blood and treasure to give them to you. But the reality is that the collectivism is so strong in most people's culture, they don't want it. And the great tragedy is that in attempting to bring freedom to the world, we are losing it ourselves. If you give $1 million to someone like Donald Trump, you get hotels all over the world. If you give $1 million to most people, there's an old story about a guy who won the lottery. He won $1 million, and the interviewer said, well, what are you going to do with $1 million? He said, well, you know, I'm going to divide it in two. I'm going to take $500,000, going to buy a lot of prostitutes, going to eat a lot of junk food, going to drink, maybe do some drugs, but the other half, I'm just going to waste it. The free market, the square root of people in a productive endeavor produce half the value. You've got a group of 10,000 people working on a project, 100 of them produce half the value. The square root of that produce another half of the value. A very tiny number of people produce almost all the wealth in the world. Collectivism does not allow those people to use their productive talents to enrich the society, so the society stays poor. Africa started very poor. It had imposed upon it free markets, individualism, rule under the law, and it grew wealthier. The population of blacks under apartheid, as you know, rose 800%. 800%. But as collectivism, socialism, tribalism takes over, the ark decays. More and more productive resources are taken out of the very few who can increase them, handed out to the many who squander them. And the economy, the society, the wealth falls. 15,000 South African farmers are being airlifted out. Perhaps it's on its route to Russia. Each South African farmer, mostly whites, feeds 2,000 people. 2,000 people. That's 30 million people who will be without food because they hate the farmers so much. They are willing to starve. They are willing to starve because the wages of sin is death. And racial hatred is a sin. Racial hatred against blacks is a sin. Racial hatred against whites is a sin. And the wages of sin is death. And they are willing to starve. As the old saying goes, to cut your nose off to spite your face. They are willing to indulge in their hatred, in the lies that they have been fed about the source of wealth in their country. They are willing to die. And this is why I view what is happening in South Africa as a crime. And all who see it and do not speak the truth are accomplices to that crime. And I do not know how they live with themselves. To see a people being cornered, being hunted, being persecuted, being excluded, being slaughtered, how they live with themselves is a mystery to me. I could not. You could not. So let us speak up and save them. I hope you will also come tonight to see Lauren and I speak. Axiomatic.events.com. I really appreciate the time today, and I wish you the very best as we work together to bring this injustice to light and hopefully solve these issues once and for all. Thank you very much.